Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Krystoforski. It's a long name. I guarantee it's the one you're not going to forget as time goes on. I addressed a group in Washington County about 2 years ago, and again prior to that, 2 years prior to that. And in front of the group I said, terrorism is a threat to national security, but it's not the only threat we face. I said one of the greatest threats we're going to face in the future is going to be an economic one. I said to them that the debt at that time was $9.5 trillion. I said, don't be surprised if, as time goes on, the Standard & Poor's and the rating agencies lower our debt rating, and don't be surprised if we find ourselves in the same situation as Greece is. We're now in 2012, and the debt's now approaching $16 trillion, and we keep sending back to Washington the same people over and over again who caused the problem, and we're looking at them to solve the problem. Right? Career politicians are not the answer. They're not there. They're not going to solve our problems as we move forward. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in the Constitution. I'm a Republican. I got involved with politics first in 1972 when I ran for a local office when I was 18, and then I also ran for and pushed for the passing of the 26th Amendment. And I've been involved with politics ever since. My platform is balanced budget amendment. We need to pass a balanced budget amendment. We have to secure our borders. We have to move towards energy self-reliance. We have to provide economic growth by limiting the regulatory agencies that we have. We are over-regulated, and we have to limit the regulations. I have 35 years experience in banking, healthcare, finance, information technology. I started companies. I started my own company. I was CEO of a research company who dealt in healthcare. I spent time in Washington back in 1993, and 1994, and 95. That's when I first got to know our current congressman, Roscoe Bartlett. And as time went on, I decided that I didn't want Roscoe as my congressman as I got to know him more and more as time went on. My website is jtkforcongress.org. I'd like to have everybody go to the website, take a look at what's there. There's plenty of information. And I thank the Free State Patriots for holding this forum. It's very informative. It'll be very informative. I agree with Kathy and Robert as far as it's gotten out of hand. But what we need to do is cut the existing budget by 85%. Cut it back to 85% of 2008 levels. Not the current budget, but cut it back to 2008 levels. We have to move to a zero-based budget. No automatic increases. Every year the federal government gets automatic increases, 7 to 8% automatic increases. They have to go away. Zero-based budgeting, every department every year starts at zero and sets their budget from that point going forward. No spending at the end of the year. If you have money left at the end of the year, it goes back into the general fund. We continue to spend and tax, spend, and borrow, and we have to stop the whole tax, spend, and borrow rate. Congressman Ryan introduced a budget for a 10-year plan. Current Congresses cannot bound future Congresses to spending limits, to spending cuts. We need a constitutional amendment to do that, and that's where the balanced budget amendment comes in. We have to give the president back his power to veto appropriations. Every president from Washington up to Richard Nixon had the power to veto appropriations in an appropriations bill. Not the line item veto, but actually take stuff out of the budget and say, I'm not going to pay for this program, we're not going to let this program go through. Congress took that away from Richard Nixon in 1974 with the Budget Act of 1974. We need to reinstate that. We need to reinstate that process. It all started in 2000. Actually, 1999 it started. And it started with the repeal of Glass-Steagall. Letting the banks get involved in insurance company business, let the insurance companies get involved in banking, and let the brokerage houses get involved in both businesses. It made the financial industry, the housing market, the wild, wild west. All regulation was totally taken away. Biggest mistake we ever made was the repeal of Glass-Steagall in 1999, when the majority of the House and the majority of the Senate, with the exception of about 15 representatives, voted against it. And those 15 representatives all had financial backgrounds and all knew what was going to come down the line over the next 8 to 9 years. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the government saying open up the floodgates, give mortgages to everybody. All right, we have to control Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They've become the Wild West, and the latest round of stimulus that's going on is going to make it even worse. We have to repeal Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank is one of the worst pieces of legislation ever. We'll see more regulation coming out of Dodd-Frank than we've ever seen before. We reinstate Glass-Steagall, which was in effect from 1933 to the year 2000. supporting the greatest economic growth this country ever saw, and we'll get back on track a little bit. That's one of the things that Congress should do, is reinstate Glass-Steagall, repeal Dodd-Frank. Consumer Protection Agency will become one of the biggest bureaucracies that this government ever created over the last 30 to 40 years, and that has to stop. They'll have the power to stop any company, and they'll have the power to say any company is too big to fail, not just banks. And the only country in the world that has done that before is in South America, nationalizing countries. Dodd-Frank will allow the federal government to nationalize companies if we don't stop that. Thank you. I think the last approval rating I saw was 43% of the people would pick people randomly from the phone book to represent them in Congress rather than the people that are sitting in Congress today, and the rating is less than 5%. I mean, Congress has become a bureaucracy, has become I say it all the time, has become the current American aristocracy. Right? They're in power, and their position is to stay in power, and they do whatever they can to keep their office and to stay in that office. And they cater more to special interest groups, and they cater more to political action committees than the people they represent. Prime example is try to go in to visit your congressman, knock on the door, walk in, go up to a clerk in the office and say, I'm Joe Smith from the congressman's district, and I'd like to speak with him. And you'll be told you have to make an appointment, you can't see him. And 10 minutes later, a couple of lobbyists will walk in, and those lobbyists will get to see the congressman without an appointment. It's happened to me. It happened to me twice down in Washington. Once with our current congressman and once with a prior congressman. The American people are fed up with Congress. Congress has consistently abdicated its responsibilities under the Constitution. They create government agencies and then walk away from those agencies, and the agencies run wild with regulation. The EPA, Health and Human Services. They are no longer representing the people of this country. They're representing special interests, and the people want people in Congress who are going to adhere to the principles that the government was founded on, adhere to the Constitution, and represent them, and not those special interest groups. I will do what I did in business. Somebody tries to sell me something, all right, they're out the door. If they're going to try to put something on the table, say, hey, here's a little gift, or here's a donation in order to help you out. All right, I have not taken any political action committee money. All right, my campaign is strictly grassroots. I've walked away from political action committee money, and I've told them to go somewhere else. The American people have had it with Congress. Congress is there and does not pay attention to what the American people are saying. I agree with a couple of things that Kathy said as far as Iran goes. We have to be vigilant. We have to keep our enemies close, our friends closer, our enemies closer. We have to watch Iran and what they're doing. We have to stay with our allies in Israel. The Middle East is one of the most volatile areas of the world. We have to make sure that if we're going to take any type of action against Iran, whether it be sanctions or some other type of action, that it's the right action and it's the right approach. We can't take chances of Iran becoming another Iraq and us going in and trying to topple the regime.
Robert talked about national security, and Dan talked about national security a little bit too. National security is an important issue. Watching Iran is an important issue, but we can't just go in blindly and take action against them. My basic position is we sit back, we let the sanctions take effect, we see what type of how the sanctions work, we see what they're going to do with Israel, and take a look, see what Israel is going to do. Thank you. We're going to keep this fairly simple. I'm glad my colleagues at the table will agree with me. All right, the federal government does not have a role in setting wages. If anything, that should be a state issue, not a federal government issue. The federal government is in too many things, in education, in health care. It doesn't belong in any of those. But just back to the minimum wage, it is not a federal government job. It's not the federal government's responsibility to set a minimum wage. Welfare programs don't work. It's been proven over and over again. You give people welfare, the more they want, and the more they're going to take. All right? We have to help people who are down on their luck through no fault of their own. Help them get bootstrapped up. But once they get bootstrapped up, all right, the benefits have to stop. If we continue to pay benefits out, whether they're unemployment benefits or just general welfare benefits, people are going to keep continuing to accept those benefits. Right? They're never going to go out and work on their own. Welfare-to-work programs do work. All right, a couple of cities, states have welfare work programs where if you're going on welfare, you go to work and it leads to a job and helps you find a job. Right? But we have to cut those benefits. We cannot continue to sustain the level of benefits, unemployment benefits, and other type of welfare benefits as that we're sustaining today, and for the country to continue to survive. So as far as welfare goes, yes, we need some type of benefit to help people get bootstrapped, but that benefit has to be a limited, short-term benefit. If we open up the free market, if we open up, cut back on regulation, then what we'll have is jobs being created in this country for those people. Thank you. That's a good question. As far as Medicare goes, one of the items on the table that I've been talking about is block grants to the states for Medicare and Medicaid, and convert it to a block grant system. Also make Medicare a means-based system, and move a little bit more of the premiums onto the people who are actually receiving the benefits. Take Part D of Medicare and change Part D of Medicare altogether, and make it more of a true prescription drug program if we're going to keep it, and move it towards negotiating prices for prescription drugs. Social Security, for those 50 and under, make a change to Social Security, prioritize it, let them control how they want their Social Security, how they want their funds invested. For those over, increase the early retirement age to 64, increase the retirement age to 68. Move towards a means-based system for Social Security benefits. Also. Thank you. I started this campaign, I guess, about 10 months ago, and I've reached out to just about every area in the district, and I've been to every area in the district, and my car has the wear and tear on it to prove it. I started at about 20,000 miles on my car. I've now got 60,000 miles on the car. I've been out there talking to the people and reaching out to the people and understanding where they stand on things. Our incumbent considers himself an educator. I had a long conversation with him once, and he said, "Joe, I'm an educator. My job is to educate the people." Well, we don't need educators in Congress. We don't need followers in Congress. We need leaders in Congress. We need people in Congress who could say, this is where we are, this is where we have to be, and here's the roadmap on how we're going to get there. And our current congressman doesn't do that. I've done that in business. I've gone into businesses that were losing money and said, all right, this is where we are, this is where we have to be, and now this is how we're going to get there, and laid out the roadmap on how to get there, and made those businesses profitable and created jobs. In 1988, I came down to Maryland in Washington County with the company in order to create jobs in Washington County, and we created 2,000 jobs in Washington County in the Hagerstown marketplace. 2 years after that, we did it again with another company that we brought into the Washington County market. So I have a proven track record of creating jobs, of sustainability, and keeping those jobs going. We have not, those companies have yet, when I was there, we had yet to lay off any people. We kept growing, and and those companies are continuing to grow. The incumbent and we all deserve to be proud of our country and proud of our government. Well, I'm proud of my country, but I'm not proud of our government any longer. All right, Congress consistently advocates their responsibilities under the Constitution. They believe that they know what we need. They know that what we need, and they're going to tell us what we need, from putting the light bulbs in our fixtures, to what type of cars we could drive, to what type of health care we should have. All right, that's not the role of the federal government. The role of the federal government, as Peter says, is enumerated in the Constitution, and the federal government has to go back to the principles that are in that Constitution. The states have to take advantage of what they can do with the 9th and 10th Amendment. All right, thank you.